Good evening, folks. Welcome to another episode of Spilling Tea. I'm your host, Tiffany Daniels. We'll get back to the JRC here in just a moment, but first, the disclaimers and the trigger warnings. If you're unfamiliar with the Stop the Shocks campaign or the campaign against the troubled teen industry, pertinent links are going to be right there in the description box. We've got Autisticoia's massive archive, where we get the bulk of the material for this channel in regards to the JRC. Neuroclastic's article, where they interviewed over 800 ABA professionals in regards to the JRC's so-called behavior modification program, the very same one that the JRC threatened a defamation lawsuit over if they didn't remove it from their website, no less. Well, Neuroclastic refused. Read the article. Share on all your social media. And also, please look below. We do have a link to Neuroclastic's GoFundMe. Unlike the JRC, we don't have access to unlimited funds. Just in case they do see through with their threat, share it if you don't got it. I know either way, they do appreciate it. Alright, to the trigger warnings. When we talk about places like the Judge Rotenberg Educational Center or Agape Boarding School for Boys, you're going to hear vivid descriptions of and catch clips of surveillance footage of people with mental health issues and disabled people being tortured and abused. If you got young children present, please make sure to utilize the headphones. Also, this channel is marked not for kids for a reason. We use profanity and speak on dark subjects. If your child's 16 and younger and watching this, parental supervision is most definitely advised. Alright. Where we left off, right before I went off, because appeals to authority are one of the most annoying things on planet Earth. Alright, back to the father. He testified that his daughter went from constantly crying, tantruming, hitting herself, and being unable to be toilet trained, to smiling, hugging, enjoying time with her family, and being able to use the bathroom and engage in other self-care skills. He testified that SAS admission to JRC and ESD treatment, SAS has learned to speak in short phrases and answer simple questions. Here we go again. Okay, father doctor guy? What is your medical area of expertise? Are you a primary care physician? Just a regular physician? Are you the guy I go to when I get checkups? If I get strep throat or ammonia? Because if that's the case, you have no authority here. That is a completely different wing of medicine. The far more practical side, yes. I know you guys are taught to recognize the signs in case you need to do a referral to places like Burl or to a pediatric neurologist, as is usually the case. But it doesn't make you an expert in the areas of mental health or dealing very specifically with those like myself with developmental disabilities. So what that means is, are you saying his experiences and what he saw doesn't count? Yes, Karen. In all fact, that is actually exactly what I'm saying. Okay? I'll use another example. When I mask, yes, even to the current day, people didn't notice. Or should I say, to put it better, adults didn't notice. Okay? All the adults saw was that some of the more virulent social issues started getting a little bit better. Granted, I got proper treatment, but that's besides the point, folks. When I was masking, the adults around me did not know it. It's true even now. And the only reason I feel like my mom could tell is because she has been in healthcare so long and has dealt with other people masking things in the middle of getting medical treatment. But my dad, my aunt and uncle, my aunt only began questioning things when she started hearing about social issues and not me trying to do too many things at once. That was pretty much it. The adults around me, my teachers, aides, cafeteria staff, janitors. I mean, my aunt literally used to call it my horse and pony show for a reason. Okay? It was the kids, my peer group, that noticed. The reason why they noticed is like I was referencing earlier in these videos. The mask was just a little bit too perfect. Okay? And when the mask is a little bit too perfect, they feel like it's a little creepy. There's something off. They can't put their finger on it what it is. But because they can't, and they know what they're seeing is not exactly real, you get ostracized. And you may make a couple of friends out of few kids you feel safe enough to not wear the mask around. Like my bestie Courtney, who lives in Colorado Springs, and yes, I'm jealous. Very. Just saying. Alright? Yeah. Now, when you're dealing with parents in particular, when they go to horrific places like this or an abusive group home, I don't say parents like to fool themselves, but a lot of times they do. They see only what they want to see. They see the so-called changes. And they allow that to lull them into a false sense of security. What I mean specifically by that, if you mask because you're doing so under duress, eventually the mask is going to slip. When the mask slips in front of the parents 1, 2, maybe 3 or 4 times, they usually excuse it off. When the exhaustion really sets in, that's when they begin to understand that the changes aren't really real. But they now have this fantasy built up in their head, see? And now they have convinced themselves that the happy-go-lucky, doing all the right things, that is their real child. But because of quote-unquote the GED device wasn't there, all of a sudden the autism came back and snatched their child away from them again. I say this because I've had these conversations. I've had to break a lot of parents' hearts, and I didn't enjoy doing it. But I'm glad I did. Because a lot of those parents who did listen began to understand and look out for those kinds of treatment programs and facilities that act like the JRC, so that they understand whatever change, no matter how positive and perfect it looks, if it's done under duress, the change isn't real. for those who refuse to listen, it's usually of one or two reasons. They want to believe the fantasy. Because if they can no longer believe the fantasy, they are going to have to come to grips with the fact that they allowed and consented for their child to go to a school and have a device used on them that has tortured them continuously for years. Imagine the amount of just horrific guilt and shock of those rose-colored glasses being rudely ripped off and being forced out of the fantasy that JRC is painting for you to see the real, ugly, hideous, monstrous reality of it all. Some parents, in spite of how painful it is, embrace the truth. Cheryl McCollins being one of them. They take their kids out. They get real people that can best assist them navigate the service system correctly. The kids and themselves are better for it. And sometimes I would give them some recommendations, because Burl had a side that dealt specifically with mental health to help them come to grips and not blame themselves for what ended up happening there. Okay? Because as Cheryl McCollins says, none of these parents really know, truly know what's going on and what's being done to those kids behind closed doors. They're the other parents that absolutely refuse to see the truth. They are going to cling to that fantasy like it is their last lifeline, and if they let go of it, they're going to drop off onto the abyss. Those types of parents, they can't deal with the truth. Okay? And when they do talk about places like this, they're not going to mention every time they see their kid's mask slip the look of utter horror, exhaustion, and despair that you can see in those kids every time the mask does slip. They will tell themselves it's a fluke and keep blissfully believing the lie. Those are the individuals who actually get angry and hate people like me. Why? For forcing them to see the truth. When that happens, we become the enemy, see? The JRC was making wonderful changes in their kid. We came, we ripped the glasses off, but no, we're the enemy. We don't understand. We don't know how bad it was, even if that was literally us in childhood. And they will attack viscerally. I've lost count of how many death threats I've had, both in official capacity and when consulting. You know, when they're not, like, showing up at my door at random. Doesn't happen so often anymore, but it does still on occasion. Okay? And those are the parents who are going to be the most virulent in defending places like the JRC. Because we told them the truth they did not want to believe, see, or hear. We are the enemy. The fantasy, the beautiful lie the JRC painted, they're clinging to that and pretending it's real. And we are the horrible, monstrous people who are trying to doom their child to what? The hell if I know. I've never gotten an explanation as to what they think we are doing, spending so much of our lives fighting tooth and nail to bring this insanity to an end. But we're the enemy. Because we showed them the truth. But the lie was so beautiful that the truth must be resisted by any means necessary. And some of these folks get scary. And yes, some of them work in healthcare. Okay? So, I don't doubt he's seen all these changes. But I would mask, I would show those quote-unquote changes too, including in looking like I enjoyed small talk. Thankfully, my mom detests small talk every bit as much as I do, but she has to have that bedside manner for work. So, when she saw that similar look, because boy, when we genetically get the same look, you can tell we're all related. She knows I detest it with the entirety of my soul, just as she does. But yeah, the people who look on outside, yeah. Okay? Alright. Time to close out for the night, folks. We don't get very many views on this channel. The few we do tend to get removed from time to time. So please don't forget to hit the like button, hit subscribe. Don't forget to hit the comments. I do appreciate your time this evening. As always, folks, we here at Spilling Tea absolutely hope you have a good one. It is time to cuddle with the cat and figure out what movie we're going to watch. Maybe Marx Brothers. I don't know. I've been feeling it lately. I could use a good Marx Brothers movie marathon. Bye-bye, everyone.